Space ahead of the Shanghai Auto Show this week. And Lin spoke to a key player in the auto tech sector and joining us live to tell us more. Lin.
Good morning, Sherry. We're certainly watching all of the new models that are being announced by the various automakers this week, but also tracking the impact that the US-China trade war is having on the sector as well. And yesterday evening, I got to speak with the CEO of a top lidar provider, Hesai Technology, David Lee, in an exclusive interview with CNBC. And just to put it into context, this is a sector which has seen rapid growth, particularly here in China. All of the major EV players, BYD, Huawei, Li Auto, the state-owned enterprises as well, they have adopted this technology to a degree as well. Now, David said to me that in terms of the revenue for the company, it's only about 10%. But he says that both the company as well as his US clients are dealing with the frustrations of these high tariff barriers, keeping in mind that in terms of those US customers, it is some of those robo-taxi companies like Zoox, like Aurora. They also supply to NVIDIA, which use their lidar sensors as well for their chip testing. Let's watch.
It's painful. Even though today we have less than 10% of the revenue this year coming from the US, but that's 10% of the revenue, and it's a lot of very valued customers we have with a lot of contracts extending into the next few years, right? So you can imagine, we both read this from the news, right? And then the discussion is like, how do we deal with it? Then if you boil down to the decisions we make on both ends, you realize that tariff is supposed to balance the trade, assuming that your domestic player has some slight disadvantage in price, probably only price, right? In our case, we are in a position that there isn't exactly a replacement for us. So when they slap this tariff, I lost track of the percentage because it becomes irrelevant, and it was just very high. But what was clear is that if this is a safety part, no one wants to use the inferior product, and we seem to be the only option the customers could choose, and there is a humongous tariff. In the end, the customers have to pay for it because we don't have that margin to absorb that. And of course, the customer is not very happy. But in the end, to me, it's almost like I am not part of this because the US government took money from my US customers and I kept zero. And somehow we were just unfortunately involved in this. But I don't think achieved what this tariff is supposed to achieve, in my opinion.
It's still a fluid situation at the moment, right? But what are the conversations? Can you tell us about what are the conversations that you're having with your US clients? And are you saying that they are going to have to stomach these additional costs and they will continue to use your products because there's no other choice?
Some of them literally said that, right? Because if they had a domestic option in the past, they probably would have gone it or should have gone with the domestic option already. You know, after all, their English is better, is closer to the customer, and it's the right thing to do if they don't like a Chinese vendor. But in the end, we want a contract because they focus on quality, they focus on performance. They think that for a safety part, you need to pick the best one, and we are the best one. So that was a part of the discussion. Of course, with some other people, it became unacceptable. That's where they really struggle because they also couldn't go with a different vendor. And then they don't want to pay the humongous tariff to continue to receive from us. So we're stuck.
And we're also tracking some key news that's coming out ahead of the Shanghai Auto Show as well, including from CATL, or Contemporary Amperex, the biggest battery maker in the world, with some really key news items coming out, including the launch of a sodium-ion battery, a new brand called Naxtra, which the company is saying will go into production in December. And I find this really fascinating, Martin, because we know that that sodium ion versus lithium is cheaper. Analysts say as well that there could be a lower risk in terms of potential fire hazards because it deals with very high and low temperatures as well. So if this thing really does scale, we could be, talking about cheaper EVs as well, particularly if we're talking about the budget range here. And if we look at NEV penetration in China, last year about 1 in 2 of the new passenger cars sold were in this category. So they're looking to get more of that market share as well. And of course, keeping in mind that the battery component of EVs is the most costly, given it is really the engine of the EV. But also in terms of critical mineral diversification, because we know that, lithium is predominantly produced in China, Australia, as well as in South America. But of course, sodium is much more easily accessible. And given, this trade war that we have been witnessing, the fact that we've seen Beijing using critical minerals as one of, its leverage points as well, I'm sure that, foreign governments, foreign countries would also be watching this closely as well.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Sodium could be the next thing for bad technology, replacing lithium. So safer and, more importantly, probably cheaper as well. You can, just head to your kitchen. It's in the salt shaker, right? So sodium is. But Lynn, interesting. CATL also announcing a new type of an existing battery. This is the lithium, which is super fast charge, right?
Yeah, indeed. It was just last month that we heard from auto giant BYD, and this really sent shockwaves across the industry, talking about this super fast charger that it called the Blade battery, that they're saying that could charge a full tank in 5 minutes. And that particular battery will charge up to 470 kilometers of range. Now you have contemporary Amprex just a few weeks later really one-upping them, because they're saying that in 5 minutes the battery can charge up to 520 kilometers of range as well. So to me, Martin, this underscores a couple of things. We talk about the hyper-competitive nature of the EV sector here. This is another example of that, because, whether it's the BYD or the CATL battery here, they are outstripping performance versus the likes of Tesla as well as Mercedes-Benz. But also, I suppose, again, this could be a good thing when it comes to potentially EV adoption here, because one of the concerns, of course, is around range. But the question I have is that these new announcements are, of course, marketed to the domestic audience, and given the geopolitical tensions, given the trade barriers, particularly from Western markets, how quickly will these companies be able to roll out this sort of technology to overseas markets as well?
All right, a lot of ground to cover, Lynn, and looking forward to your coverage at the Shanghai Auto Show, which is, I think, starting tomorrow, right?
Indeed.
Okay, good stuff. We'll see you then. Lynn, they're live for us.